In this video, I'll be going over the differences with the second Godzilla film, Godzilla no Gyakushu, or Godzilla Raids Again, and its American counterpart, Gigantis the Fire Monster. With that said, let's get right into it. The Japanese cut opens with a title card accompanied by Godzilla's roar. Following that, we see the names of the cast and crew, with the main theme of the movie scored by Masaru Sato playing as it happens. The US version opens differently with a stock footage montage of nuclear blasts and rockets, narrated by radio and film voiceover Marvin Miller. The scene lasts about a minute and 21 seconds before going to its own title card and credits, showing footage of the battle in Osaka with stock music from the 1957 sci-fi film Kronos playing over it. The Gigantis title card would only appear in the theatrical release and some TV broadcastings. When the movie was given a VHS release in 1989, it replaced the Gigantis title card with the Raids Again one. All future releases would keep this change. The US cut continues to use stock footage from various sources to show the life of the people in Kaio, with narration of our main lead, Tsukioka, dubbed by Chinese-American actor Ki Luke. It's not till around the 3-minute mark where the US cut starts where the Japanese one does. The introduction of Tsukioka is quiet in the original version, with just the sound of the plane being heard. The US cut has him continuing to narrate on who he is and what he does, with more stock music playing over him. A part where a woman is using a telegraph sounder is zoomed in the US cut, most likely to hide the burnt-in Japanese text on the right-hand side. A small few seconds of Tsukioka contacting Hidemi for a second time is trimmed in the US cut. In fact, when we leave this moment, about a second or two is also cut. Kobayashi's introduction again has narration over him in the dub, of course with more stock music playing. In fact, I'm just going to leave this little symbol down here in the corner if there's any stock music playing in the dub. So let's continue. A few seconds of Hidemi's co-worker is shortened in the US cut. A few seconds of Kobayashi's plane is also cut. Also, a shot of Tsukioka's plane is cut. A few seconds of an aerial shot are rearranged in the US version, with more unnecessary narration by Ki Luke. In fact, just like the music, I'll leave this little icon down here when it shows narration in the dub. A few seconds of Tsukioka looking at Iwato Island are cut. In fact, a lot of moments where Tsukioka finding Kobayashi have a few seconds of cutaways trimmed down a bit or rearranged. The scene where Tsukioka landing is removed, along with a small shot of Kobayashi. Godzilla and Anguirus' battle introduction replaces Godzilla's roars with Anguirus', something that would last the entire movie aside from a few small moments. Also, both characters recognize one of the monsters as Godzilla, while the dub has them clueless on what both of them are. At the conference scene, all moments where Godzilla is brought up are rewritten to have them identify the creature as a Gigantosaurus in the US version. A few moments here and there of the biologist are either trimmed down or rearranged in the dub. When Dr. Yamane is speaking, a few seconds of both Tsukioka and Kobayashi are added in the dub. This exact part would be used 2 more times during the conference scene. Extra dialogue is added to thank Yamane in the US version. The Japanese version is silent when the film projector is playing the original Godzilla's attack. The US version has Dr. Yamane narrating on what we're seeing. This version also has added footage of dinosaurs and other such events from various sources. According to Steve Reifel in the DVD commentary, the footage was most likely from children's educational videos. The moments when we do get to see Godzilla, Dr. Yamane calls him a member of the Anguirus family and continues to narrate on it. Also, a few seconds of the group watching the projector is cut. After it finishes, the conference scenes are all over the place in the dub, with parts rearranged, some actual talking trimmed down, and the whole scene is pretty much shortened down in the US cut. Interestingly, the oxygen destroyer is mentioned in the dub, despite this version not being a sequel to the original. A shot of the Kaio fishing building is cut in the US version, along with Hidemi walking to Tsukioka before they talk. A shot of an intercom is added in the US cut, along with shortening down a few seconds of the broadcaster here. When Godzilla, or Gigantis, is thought to be spotted, a newspaper article is shown only in the dub, along with more stock footage that goes on for over a minute. They even reuse a prior scene but just mirrored it. An actual Japanese newspaper is cut in the dub. A few seconds of Tsukioka are trimmed. The newspaper headlines are different in both versions. When we make it to Osaka, the US version cuts out or rearranges more scenes. There's even some added scenes in the US version which include geishas, a nightclub with Caucasians, and a moment where Japanese swastikas are censored out. A few seconds of planes flying over Osaka are trimmed. Extra dialogue is added when people are on the lookout for Godzilla. When Godzilla arises, the US surprisingly uses Sato's score in this part. I believe it's only one of few times when the actual music is used in both versions. In fact, the battle in Osaka in both versions are pretty much the same, with only tiny trims here and there in the dub. The only real big trim is a few seconds of Gigantis shaking his head. The aftermath of the attack stays about equal in both cuts, up to when both Tsukioka and Kobayashi are talking with Yamaji, or some parts receive small trims. This next one might just be my copy of the movie, but there appears to be more snow falling in the US version when Kobayashi's flying his plane. Kobayashi's note is different in both versions. In fact, his name in the English version is spelled incorrectly. A moment with Kobayashi at the Yayoi restaurant is cut. A few seconds of him talking to Ademi is also trimmed down. A group of planes have a shot of a newspaper headline faded over the scene in the US cut. Afterwards, we get a montage of more scenes not present in the original movie. A scene when Tsukioka is talking to Ademi is shortened in the US version. A similar trim happens with Ademi and Kobayashi in a later scene. A moment with Ademi is shortened. A close-up of Kobayashi's reaction to Godzilla is cut. A few seconds of Tajima and Tsukioka is shortened. A few seconds of giant blocks of ice falling are removed. 2 scenes where planes are dropping bombs on the snow-filled mountains is removed in the US version. When Ademi is mourning Kobayashi's death, she is given extra dialogue in the US cut. Also, a few seconds of her sitting down quietly are removed. A small scene with the ice is removed. The scene when pilots are discussing their plan to trap Godzilla is shortened in the US cut. When we go back to the attack on Godzilla, a shot of planes is removed in the US version. A shot of a plane going over Godzilla is also cut. A few shots of Godzilla by the fire are removed. Shots of falling ice and the JSFD planes are either removed, rearranged, or trimmed down. A shot of Godzilla catching a plane is cut. After the battle with Godzilla, the Japanese version has Tsukioka talking to himself saying to Kobayashi how mankind has beaten Godzilla. We then follow up with a static shot of the island as the end title card fades in. The US cut has Tsukioka narrating the hell out of the last few minutes, with additional footage not present in the original version again. The Japanese version runs for an hour and 21 minutes, while the US one runs for an hour and 18 minutes. Despite the shorter runtime, the US version adds a lot of footage not present in the original, right from the opening scene to the very end of the movie. It also shortens down a lot of moments that linger on a bit too long in the Japanese cut, giving it a more of a quicker pace. Though stupidly, the US cut adds a lot of extra dialogue, especially with Key Luke narrating a good chunk of the movie for no real reason. Godzilla's roar in the US cut was replaced with Gigantis's, and despite that, you can actually hear his real roar in certain parts of the film. I spotted a total of 12 times you can actually hear his roar, not counting grunts. I don't really watch dubs of these movies anymore, but I can tell you now to just avoid the English version of the film. The dub makes Tsukioka sound like a book come to life with all the narrating he does. Kobayashi sounds like a bumbling fool that belongs in a Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and Godzilla's a different monster that sounds like Gigantis. I should note that the reason why Godzilla's name became Gigantis in the English version is because the American producer, Paul Schreibman, simply wanted to de-sequelify it from anyone who did not see the first film 3 years prior. It's not like today where almost every movie has a sequel. Back in the 50s, they were a little more rarer. In fact, I can't even think of many that did come out around that time. Oh, and despite the name being changed back to Godzilla in the title, the dub still calls him Gigantis or even Angoras in some parts. So unless they redub the movie, which I can't see happening, future generations that watch this version are going to be really confused. Godzilla Raids Again isn't one of the better films of the series, but if you had to watch it, stick with the original cut.
Hey kids, the fantastic fire monsters are coming. Mighty Gigantis crushing whole cities in its wrath. Deadly Anguirus screaming its challenge of battle to the death. They're out to destroy each other, but first they'll destroy the world. Look out for Gigantis the fire monster.